The show, I feel, really picks up steam with the introduction of the Green Ranger. It was an epic 5-part story arc which switched up the regular formula that we had become accustomed to. There is a new student in town, Tommy Oliver, and he's going up against Jason, who is the regular karate linchpin at Angel Grove High School. He immediately has the Rangers talking, and in the case of Kimberly, gazing. He leaves a massive impression with his fight against Jason, which ended in a time limit draw. After fending off Bulk and Skull, he introduces himself to Kim, who really gets gazy. We know what she all really wanted from Tommy then now, don't we? Rita has seen him and wants to make him the 6th Ranger, so sends out the putties to attack and test his skills. He is then captured and trapped in a magic cocoon, and Rita applies her spell. He rises, and thus the Green Ranger is born, and wastes no time in making his mark. Getting into the Power Rangers HQ, the command center, disabling Alpha 5 and taking out Zordon. The Rangers are summoned into action after arriving at the command center and salvaging the wreck that was made. After a brief battle with Goldar, the Green Ranger makes his move, taking them out of the Megazord first and one by one beating them in hand-to-hand combat. The one-on-one with Jason was a nice fun watch. He ends this sequence by channeling his inner Ryu and blasting them with an energy ball. They are forced to retreat, and the episode ends with what has become a trademark iconic laugh.
To the fall of the Power Rangers! I'll destroy you one and all.
Tommy continued to wreak havoc for the remaining episodes, which saw him coldly reject Kimberly and kidnap Jason and trapped him in another dimension without his powers. He briefly engaged the other Rangers but was forced to retreat after he dealt with the Megazord on his lonesome. Jason meanwhile has to fend off Goldar and then the Green Ranger himself, and he comes very close to having his lights turned off permanently before being rescued by the other Rangers. A huge battle ensues and the Rangers face off against Goldar, Scorpina and a giant-sized Green Ranger and get their clocks absolutely cleaned, retreating back to the command center to re-strategize and find a way to bring back Zordon. It is there that the identity of the Green Ranger is discovered, and it's Tommy. Much to the Rangers' surprise, especially Kim. Kim later confronts him about it, but he warns her off with his glowing green eyes. Rita provides Tommy with his own Zord, the Dragon Zord, and sets out to wreak havoc once again. The Rangers go into action and manage to take out the Dragon Zord. Then Jason and Tommy have another one-on-one confrontation. It ends with Jason finally getting the upper hand and breaking the spell and turning Tommy into a good guy. After initially resisting, he then decides to join the Rangers, and now there are 6. The whole story arc was an excellent introduction for Tommy. They took the Rangers out of their usual comfort zone and told a great story of good versus evil and redemption. And this was the very first major change in the Power Rangers continuity. Tommy would go on to become a firm fan favourite amongst the fans of the show. There was a bit of a formulaic approach once he was settled, with him getting called upon after the other 5 were in action and needed his help. Or in some instances he would be on his lonesome fighting the putties and sometimes get caught, he would get free and then rejoin the other Rangers. Although to be fair, there were other episodes where they mixed things up, such as the episode Gung Ho, when Jason and Tommy are struggling to work together as a duo and are always trying to one-up each other. But this being the goody two-shoe show that it is, they managed to overcome and work together. Now, I particularly liked that dynamic, and I wish that they had expanded on it during the run of the show. Having conflict within a team of superheroes always makes for a more interesting story. Tommy's run would come to an end with the 2-part story The Green Candle, when he loses his powers via a candle Rita created, which was the source of his Green Ranger powers when she created him. Tommy is unable to restore his powers and sadly has to give up his Ranger powers to Jason and leave the team. It wasn't all bad though. He finally asks out Kimberly on a date, and they have their first kiss and officially become a couple. In the episode The Power of Gold, my interest was suddenly piqued once again with the arrival of this guy, the Gold Ranger. What a cool costume. I think it is my favourite Ranger costume of all time. Now of course this wasn't the same course as the evil Green Ranger. The Gold Ranger is a good guy, but he keeps his identity secret, and he just shows up whenever the Rangers are outmatched by their villains. Now in addition to the Gold Ranger, there was also the arrival of Tommy's long lost brother David, who was Jason David Frank's real life brother Eric. His presence brought an interesting and fresh new dynamic to the show. As far as the Gold Ranger goes, there are several teases as to who it could be. Billy acted all coy when asked about it, but insisted it wasn't him. There were teases that it could be David, but that turned out to be false. Little side note, there were plans for David to become the Gold Ranger, but his demands proved too much for the producers, so those plans were scrapped, as was Eric, as after this episode we never saw him on screen again. The Gold Ranger actually turned out to be Trey of Triforia. Who? Yep, my thoughts exactly. It seemed like such a letdown that this unknown was the Gold Ranger. Nothing against him, it's just the way things were building, it seemed the payoff would be a big one. Turns out Trey was just a smokescreen. He is injured in battle and he splits himself into 3 beings, and as a result he can't command the Gold Ranger power, so a substitute is needed. Immediately it looks like Billy would once again become a Ranger, but that turned out to be another red herring. So he unfortunately cannot be the Gold Ranger. So Tommy makes a suggestion. In the episode Golden Homecoming we see his choice, but they have his face covered up with shades and the bandana on his head. Now after a brief brush against the cogs and a subsequent teleport to the power chamber, and after much dilly-dallying, boy it was getting very annoying at this point, Tommy reveals his choice. Jason, the original Red Ranger and leader of the Power Rangers, was back, and now I am once again invested in Power Rangers. But why does Billy look like he ain't happy to see him? I mean, they both started this whole Power Rangers thing. And why are the others all smiling like they know him? I mean, Rocky did replace him as the Red Ranger, but there was no interaction with them, especially as Austin St. John had actually left the show by the time he came on. And certainly, Kat and Tanya won't know him, as it was way before their time. Story inconsistencies, people. Story inconsistencies. But in any event, it was so cool to have Jason back as the new Gold Ranger. Now he operates in the Tommy role as the 6th Ranger on the team, with a cool looking suit with a shield. Seeing Jason reacquaint himself with Tommy and Billy was actually very cool to see. Watching him chill out with Rocky and Adam was also cool as well. Watching him hang out with Catherine was cool. Watching him hang out with Tanya was also cool. And I think personally him and Tanya would have made an interesting power couple, don't you think? Also, after 17 episodes, Jason's run as the Gold Ranger came to an end. There had been a little mini arc about Jason struggling to maintain the Gold Ranger powers due to his intense workout regime. And in the last episode of the season, As Good as Gold, he is forced to give up the power and it is transferred back to Trey. Jason can only stand back and watch as the Rangers take care of King Mondo. It is a sad end watching him give up the power, and it was kind of poetic that Tommy was on hand to tell him exactly how he feels, as that was once him. Jason does walk off into the sunset, however, with his new girlfriend Emily by his side.